السيدات والسادة، الكلمة الرئيسية المقبلة ستكون تحت عنوان أثر الميتافريس على القطاع العقاري. يقدمها مستشار الحكومة الرقمية للقطاع العام والشرق الأوسط وأفريقيا في EY السيد محمد سير.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yeah. First of all, it's really great to be here. It's a prestigious event. We're looking at the whole future of real estate in Saudi Arabia. And I've been asked to talk in 15 minutes, so I'll keep it quite short, what actually the metaverse could mean for the real estate and generally the government and broader sectors. So I've given it the title of exploring because everyone has different perspectives and all of us are receiving lots of information every day. What I've tried to do, because the session is short, I've tried to keep it within these 5 things. I'm going to talk a little bit about the noise. I'm sure you may also recognize that all the information that is flowing into us about the metaverse. I want to then, from my perspective, talk about the metaverse and what the reality means for me. What does it mean for me as the metaverse? There are different lenses to look at the metaverse from, and many perspectives. The second is I will try and bring this to life through some use cases that are specific for the real estate industry as a whole and the housing industry. There are only 4 or 5, and I'll talk very briefly about it. But then I will go into talking about a prototype that we've been working on in collaboration with a number of government organizations, the Ministry of Rural Affairs and Housing, the National Housing Company, Sakani, and also the Digital Government Authority and MCIT, collaborating on building a prototype of what a specific use case around building a house as a national could mean for you in the metaverse. So let's start with the noise. So when I think about the metaverse, this is what's coming to me. Lots of information flowing at me in all directions, and I'm finding it very difficult to understand what actually it means, because one person is talking about it from a perspective of avatars, another one is talking about it from the perspective of metahumans, some are talking about it from the perspective of the blockchain, others are talking about NFTs, augmented reality, virtual reality, some are talking about extended reality. Some are talking about what this means from a perspective of artificial intelligence. Others are saying it's about digital twins. And some are talking about cryptocurrency, and others are talking about Web 3.0. And then we have on top of this the whole concept of the decentralized autonomous organizations. So if it's like you, if anything like me, and you are finding the same problem, what does actually the metaverse mean? Which one of this is it? Because all of these actually existed before even we started talking about the metaverse. So if we're talking about something new, how can it be this? So for me, the way I've simplified it is, the reality is about it being a 3D virtual online world. So whatever we do, it has to be the online world. For me, as a purist, I would not accept just wearing a virtual reality headset and say that actually is the metaverse. But if I'm doing that activity in an online space, in an online platform, then of course I would treat it as being in the metaverse. The same is for blockchain, cryptocurrency, all of these things. So, from one extreme, we can think of the metaverse as taking real world experiences and trying to recreate them in an online space where we can experience. A digital twin, for me, will sit over here. When we talk about taking a building, taking a hall, taking something and trying to recreate that in the online space as a 3D experience. On the other extreme, you have imagined experiences, which are new creations, something that didn't exist in the physical world, but we are maybe creating it in the online world. Totally imagined new doesn't exist, but we have taken the power of the metaverse, the capability of the Unreal Engine or Unity, whatever development software we're using, and our imagination to create something new. So Decentraland, for example, which is, if you've heard of, is a new element, a new platform where you can actually buy and sell virtual property and actually set up something virtually. You can argue is sitting on that side. In between are many hybrids of this virtual and physical space. So either the imagined or not. On the imagined side, you also have, for example, creating totally new tourist experiences that don't exist today. On the other extreme, you could be taking, for example, I want to go to space. How can I create that experience of being in space in the metaverse? So those who can't go to space can actually experience it. And all of those I spoke about earlier are technologies that actually are at play in this whole concept of bringing to life virtual worlds. So the capabilities needed for this is more to do with imagination, 3D design, even animation, and storytelling and building new worlds. And you may have heard of a term used, world building. That's what is happening. And many of these are playing a role in terms of in that space. And if I look at from a Gartner perspective, because I don't want you to go away with just my view of what the metaverse may mean, Gartner puts it from a technical perspective, metaverse is a collective virtual shared space created by the convergence of virtually enhanced physical and digital realities. Not far off from what I am thinking about this as. It then goes on to simplify that and say from a simplicity perspective, think of the metaverse as the next iteration of the internet. The internet started with individual bullet boards, and then it created independent online destinations. Eventually, these destinations became sites on the virtual shared space, similar to how a metaverse will eventually happen. So it's to simplify, think of it as platforms that are going to evolve where we will be able to do activities, either those which existed in this world or it's a totally new experience. From a use case perspective, there are many, and I've chosen a few. For example, for the real estate, we can look at this as maybe a place, as a showcase. I want to show my properties, my portfolio that I want to sell. How can I make it possible for people to access it? We were able to do that today through maybe our websites or coming to the showroom. The metaverse will give this opportunity to create it into a 3D environment so you can actually feel it much better than what you would do in a website or in your showroom itself. The 3D dimensions that we build, the augmented reality or the virtual reality, those elements come into play. Another use case is I want to launch a property. I'm looking at a new community, I'm looking at a new villa compound or whatever that may be. How can I use the metaverse to use that? And this is now starting to happen quite a lot. We are seeing many organizations starting to experiment with doing events such as that in the metaverse. Recently, actually, a whole concert was done in the metaverse, and believe it or not, even the singer was a meta-human. It wasn't a real world person. And he was able to hold this concert for whatever time frame. Recently, I've seen also a catwalk take place in the metaverse, where it was happening in the physical world, and they were recreating a digital twin of that catwalk, which was for a product launch in the metaverse. And people from all around the world could experience it in the physical, but in the virtual space as well. And you can start to think about how the market access opens up when you're thinking about using the metaverse, because you cannot experience the same level of 3D experience in your homes as if you can do it when you build these platforms. Virtual experience is another one. I'm buying a house. I want to go and feel what it'll be like to be in that house. So for example, in this case, I'm looking at an apartment. I want to go in there, I want to experience, and you can. Your avatar can actually go there, and it's like you feeling and looking 360 degrees of what it's like to be in that apartment. The same could be about you are selecting furniture or other materials. You're looking at your house itself when you're building your house. How can you experience that? Sales buying. I want to sell an apartment, a villa of some sort. I can do that in the metaverse in a different way than having to physically get people in the showroom itself. And that we are seeing as a use case starting to emerge quite a lot. Meetings inside our organizations, all with other people. We want to do meetings. How can we do that in a different way? Today we have shifted from pure physical to doing a lot of stuff on Teams or Zoom, etc. This is taking it to the next level where your avatars could be sitting and having a meeting whilst behind the scene you are not physically seen, but you are actually there present having a conversation. Now from the prototype perspective, this is something, as I said, we've taken imagining what in KSA building a house service could be like in the metaverse. And we took the experience of Sakani today to some extent. It doesn't 100% mimic that, but we took the experience of, as a national, I have been given a plot of land. I need to now build my house. What could that experience look like step by step in the metaverse? So one thing to keep in mind is we have looked at this as 4 layers. The first layer is that as a central level, government has an access point for the metaverse for all government services. Number 2 is you are able to go in and select different verses because the government deals with many different stakeholder groups, whether it's international, whether it is your government to business, government to citizens. So one of the verse which we have tried to look at is what we call the citizen verse. The next layer is in the citizen verse, what we have imagined is how can we break down the silos of government to create an experience that is much better than what it is in today's world, even through the IT systems that we have. So we call that life experiences, and we've created districts for each life experience where you can go in and experience what services are available for that life experience. In this case, we are talking about the housing and building a property life experience. And the last point is the service itself. In this case, we have selected the service, which is building a house. How that looks like, the prototype is built, so any of you who want to come and play around and have a look around how it feels, you're more than welcome. So come see me and I can help you look through that. But basically, we have created 2 avatars to start with. One a female, you see the ones on the right side, one female, one male. And the first entry point, which we are calling the central gov point, is where someone enters and is greeted by a bot, like you would in the real world. So this person will be able to communicate with you. So your avatar, you build your avatar, or you select your avatar, and the next stage is you'll be able to interact with the service person, which is going to be a bot. The next level is you're going into what I was talking about, the verses. We have created the verses as their worlds. So when you enter this space, these verses actually drop down. And you go up to this and you can select one of the verses. And basically, you can even communicate with the bot and say, I am looking for a service and I don't know where to go. The bot will be able to then guide you towards that service and say, actually, you need to go to the citizen verse, and when you go into the citizen verse, you'll be able to do that particular service. And in the prototype, that's exactly what we've done. We've made it communicative. The next is you enter that space, what I talked about, experiences. So you'll notice over here, there are different doors that lead you to something. The one which is built out today as a concept is the Sakani door, because Sakani today provides services for housing and property in the kingdom. And when you get to Sakani, you will be able to see all of the different services that they provide, one being building a house. And the next level is where we then go into building a house service. And the way we have brought that to life is by actually creating buildings. You go up the floor and you complete the service. So you start at one point, you complete that service, whatever has to be done as a step, then you move to the next, and eventually the whole service is complete. So in this case, for example, it's starting with the welcoming part, and you have, again, the design concept is about making it facial recognition, biometrics, rather than typing into things. The second part, which is selecting your service providers, because as part of Sakani's service step, you have to select your service providers. The next is where you will go and actually start building in a 3D environment your house. You start to select the materials, and you can see on the right side where the house is starting to emerge. So in the prototype, you will see how that could look. And eventually, you end up with the last point where it's a control center where you can come anytime you want to meet with any of the service providers, or to be able to complete your, looking at the tracking of your house build itself. So here, I'm going to show you a short video to bring this to life, because it wasn't possible to show the whole prototype. So if I can ask to please play the video.
Welcome to the KSA Gulf Central, the metaverse platform that will be used by people in the future to interact with the government. Let's take a walk through using the Building a House live moment to explore how this new way will be used for requesting all the required government services. In KSA Gulf Central, you're represented by an avatar created by you. You also have a bot to guide you through the process if needed. For the live moment Building a House, you start by searching for government-certified service providers, such as architects and engineers. Then easily apply for the building permit and other needed domestic permits. Meet virtually with your architect's engineer and designer to define your house plan, select materials, and build a 3D version of your future house using AI. You can also track your construction process, book virtual meetings with your service providers, update deadlines, and request sustainability, completion, and other required certificates. You've just been given a glimpse of the vision for how the metaverse will transform interactions with the KSA government in the future, and how a particular government service can be obtained. Join us in creating an experience where the government can play a leading role in delivering services in this innovative way.
Thank you. So that gives you a glimpse in about a minute and a half what actually that physical experience looks like, that you can actually come and experience as if you are doing it yourself. Go back to the slide, please. That'll be great. Thank you. So I will leave you with a last thought, which is, what's my options? What I do if I am a ministry, an organization, someone enthusiastic about this, what am I seeing around the world in this space in terms of going forward? I'm seeing many on the wait and see. I'm going to step back and see what happens, let things emerge, and then I will come out and I will then maybe experiment with it, because now I have confidence of the use cases becoming mature. I see some other categories of people, organizations, who are willing to tip their toe in the water and experiment with this and take something as a maybe prototype or POC, and just to see what does it mean, go through the whole journey of going out from the strategizing and thinking to actually the reality, what does it mean to bring this from a concept to actually a working prototype or a service. And then I'm seeing some who are just jumping in, not caring about anything else because they see the opportunity. Those are the people who are actually know the market in 2022 for the metaverse-related businesses and opportunities stood something around just under 50 billion. By 2030, it is expected to be something like 700 billion. So you can understand why those people are jumping in. They are making the investments and the big bets, and of course, Meta is one of those organizations. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you very much for listening.
شكرا مستر سير. أدعو معالي المهندس عبد الله البدير نائب وزير الشؤون البلدية والقروية والإسكان لتكريم السيد محمد سير نظير هذه الكلمة التي نقلتنا إلى عالم الميتافريس. سيد محمد سير. أدعو معالي النائب للبقاء على المنصة للمشاركة في الجلسة المقبلة.